Welcome back, everybody. It is just about 7:09 in the morning here on News Radio 830 KHVH, and much anticipated, thoroughly enjoyable. And will you be quiet? What? It's Zuckerberg going, turn the microphones off. It's those boys again. It is the SHOPO Hour featuring Bobby, Steve, and Mark. First of all, gents, a very good morning to you. Bobby, good morning, good morning.
Good morning there, Rick. Another fabulous weekend, a brand new week, Labor Day coming up. Great to be here. Oh, here's what you found.
Here's what I found. Transcript of Zuckerberg's appearance before Congress. That's what my watch is telling us. Unbelievable. Shh. It is a good day. That's a program note because holiday next week. But maybe we can find a day next week, non-Monday, that we can reunite and all of that.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, we can make that work.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Brother Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, boys. Always happy and grateful to be here, Rick, with you and your listeners.
We love having you here, as always. Brother Mark?
Yeah, Rick, good morning. Bobby, Steve, happy Monday to everyone.
It is Happy Monday. Those are two words that normally don't go together well.
Like when you're retired, it is happy, So.
He has to bring up being retired. Oh, my gosh. It's been a frenetic week. There have been several topicalities in the news that we can get into. I had a quick question because just definition of terms. Because you tell us about the representation of SHOPO, who within the HPD are members, and what delineates member, non-member, but then the commentary from you of advocacy for all men and women who wear the uniform.
Yeah, so SHOPO is comprised of about 2,600 or 2,700 members statewide, and those law enforcement officers who are SHOPO members are from the rank of lieutenant and below. So your regular police officers, and then your corporals, sergeants, and then lieutenants. And then the ranks of captain and above, you enter so-called management, and then those management is kind of represented by HGEA and not SHOPO.
Okay.
And then what was the second part of your question?
No, I think you basically covered it, is to find out what the delineation was, but there is a universal support for
yes.
all.
And then we have different kinds of members as far as like an associate member. An associate member would be somebody like Mark, who's a retired police officer, and they pay $5 a year for membership. And then, with the recent Janus ruling, members can, opt out of the union and not pay union dues, but receive representation during an administrative investigation all the way until step 3, right before we would go to arbitration. And for those members that don't pay the dues, if it does go to arbitration, then we would charge them a fee per hour for an attorney to arbitrate their case.
So I remember back in the day with organized labor that the main protest was the support of candidates in the utilization of funds because they would have a disagreement. And this goes way back with Gary Rodriguez days and what have you. Has this been rectified in some way? I guess Janice made that determination, yes?
Yes, so it was a decision by the Supreme Court. And, it stands as today. I think most of the unions statewide have kind of gone through that period already. There have been members that have opted out. I believe UPW had about 1,000 members, I think, opt out of their 10 times or 5 times larger than us. Right. They have about 13,000 members, I think, but about 1,000 opted out. So, but as far as now, the Janus ruling, I think, is going on either about 2 years, maybe 3 years. So, it's been out for a while.
Yeah. Mark, did you want to say anything? You good, Steve?
I was just going to say for any union member that decides to opt out, the union is still obligated to represent them up to a certain point within the grievance process. What that technically does then is it stresses the union because the members that are still part of that union end up absorbing the cost of the members that have opted out. So it's sort of like a welfare system. If a member decides that they want to walk away from their union, they have the ability to do that. Because Janus, the union then is obligated, again, up until a certain point in the grievance process, to still assist that member. But we got to keep in mind, when the union assists a member, at least with SHOPO, we have business agents and whatnot that we compensate them. They're retired police officers that work on behalf of the officers as business agents. Their time costs money. So in the case of HPD, if anybody were to opt out and SHOPO with the statewide representation, the members that stay in would bear the burden of that cost, and that goes for the majority of the unions out there.
What in legal defense? What role does Corp Counsel play as the city and county's legal branch? Are they the ones that would be involved in prosecution or defense, or neither?
For our members?
Yes.
So for our members, the only role that Corp Counsel plays is in the civil litigation process. So, if let's take example of myself. If I did something in course and scope of my duties, and then somebody files a lawsuit against me and the department, I would then go to the police commission and request representation from Corp Counsel in that civil lawsuit. And then police commission will have the final say whether yes or no. We do have a benefit for our dues-paying members, PORAC, Police Officers Research Association of California, which is a legal defense fund. It's the largest in the nation. Their assets have grown to almost $60 million. And they provide legal defense for our officers. So an officer that has been alleged to commit a criminal conduct or civil litigation, they give PORAC a call, and PORAC will then give a good attorney for that officer free of charge. So prime example would be the 3 officers that were attempted to be prosecuted for murder.
Yes.
Yeah, PORAC stepped in. Those attorneys that represented our officers, free of charge, 0 came out of our officers' pocket. So that's a benefit that we provide to them.
Which is substantial.
Absolutely.
I mean,
And
my goodness.
I just want to distinguish clearly that PORAC does not give officers attorneys in criminal conduct where it's you get arrested for DUI or you clearly assault somebody. Maybe an example would be the Kalihi game room incident several years ago where an officer was throwing a chair at somebody. Those kinds of situations where the conduct is clearly egregious. So
if there's a delineation between civil and criminal, then what criminal representation in a criminal case are the options for either members or even non-members?
What are their options?
Yeah,
within the department?
Yeah,
it would be PORAC to step in and represent them criminally, and of course they could also make the decision to go out on their own and hire an attorney on their own.
Rick, it has to be made clear that the officer has to be, if the officer is getting sued or prosecuted, it has to be that he was performing within the course of scope of his duties. So if he's acting in the course and scope of being a police officer, and something from that comes, whether it's criminal, civil, then PORAC can step in and assist. So it's as long as the officer was acting within course and scope, the PORAC attorneys that we have on call will step in and work with our members through and through.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and the other thing with Corp Counsel, right? Again, like Steve was saying, as long as they're in the scope of their duties and they're doing their job, right? Because you're going to see the news out there say, "Oh, the taxpayer's on the hook for legal defense for these officers." No, as long as they're in the scope of their duties, the police commission is obligated to give representation to these officers. So it's a formality. As long as they weren't committing any criminal offense, doing any civil rights violations, but if it was in the scope of their duty, they're obligated to give them that representation. So, but it kills me, or it kind of pisses me off that when the news comes out, taxpayers on the hook because they got to pay for these officers. No, it's they're obligated to give it to them because it's in the scope of their work.
We need good points, Mark.
Yeah.
We need the membership. We need our men and women that put the uniform on every day, that go out and protect the community. They need to be protected. If they do their job effectively and within policy and within course and scope, the membership that goes out and puts their lives on the line every day need to know that the union has their back and that we have systems in place to protect our membership so they don't get dragged through the mud.
The recent case of extensive aggressive, or whatever the terminology is, with an officer and another, there were reports that there was a seeking of private counsel and securing of a private attorney. What would lead an officer to do that? Would that mean he would be exempted from usual legal representation as you've described? Because it is, yes, within duty, but allegations that supersede that? Bobby, does that make sense?
Really,
Well, meaning if they didn't want the POREC attorney, could they get their own attorney? I'm sorry, is that where we're going?
I know where you're coming from. So it's when, kind of like the Kealoha thing, they went and got private attorneys, right? And then the taxpayers had to pay. So usually when there's a conflict of interest with the city, right? The city will allow, or the police commission will allow private attorneys will foot the bill. So it's the city will okay to foot the bill for the private attorneys because there's some type of conflict of interest with the corp counsel or the city.
Okay.
Yeah.
But again, I think it needs to be stressed very clearly that if an officer is found acting outside the course and scope, they're on their own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Thanks for that. Thanks. Very. And one thing that's celebratory about getting together, I don't think I've ever heard a union official go through exactly what role, responsibility, and expense and cost and all this. So thank you very much for bringing this to the fore. Short break, 7:21 in the morning, News Radio, 8:30 KHH. We'll get into some topicality with the SHOPO Hour, which resumes after this. News Radio, 8:30 KHVH. It is the SHOPO Hour featuring Bobby and Steve and Mark. And the one thing that comes to mind is it depends on a lot of different elements that comprise a story. For instance, I've come across two stories where there's been a quote-unquote carjacking, armed robbery of a vehicle while the driver is in the car, one in Makiki, one over on Laliha. And rarely do we have these types of reports. Is that indicative that there is an increase, more brazen activities on the road, or is it just simply these are two of the stories that have been reported?
I think it's more of these are the two stories that
Yeah.
that have been reported.
Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that.
Then when we talk about what's reported, I just chatted about this in the previous hour. And again, I gave mad props to the administration, the focus on Chinatown. It's been generations in the making. I, in 30 years, have not seen as much profound attention on Chinatown. There was a call for cleanups and volunteers all the way from the mayor to the AG and beyond came in force. And Steve Alm had said something of saying that crime in that district, Chinatown district, was down 60%. However, I had reports from Mrs. Kwok with the business organization in Chinatown reporting that businesses are closing sooner now. There are reports of less merchant and commerce, foot traffic, less business because of concerns. Final point, the shooting in Chinatown of the pregnant mother, that's a tough story. That is a point of reference. So where do we as the public, where do we derive? Who do we believe when it comes to reports like this? And that's why I'm glad you're here in studio.
Did you say 60? 60?
60. That's on a report that I aired from Hawaii News Now.
Wow. I don't think that's
I
right.
mean,
Statistics are only as good as the people that put the statistics in whatever database they're talking about. I would be inclined to believe the business owners that are boots on the ground there, that if they're saying that they see less foot traffic, and statistics are only as accurate as the people that put them in, and then how did you obtain those things? As far as who would I believe? I would believe the business owners that work and are invested there every day. Their concerns should definitely be at the forefront. I was excited, Rick, when you said that coming together. If you create value, then people are going to want to get on board. And
Right.
Clearly this is a step in the right direction. But as far as who's more credible, is it, if you're alluding to the fact that, hey, the prosecutor Allen was saying that crime is down 60%, but you have business owners that are saying, well, we're still kind of concerned, so we're closing our shop early, or we're doing it, then that's a perception issue. Then we need to try to work with the business owners down there to change the perception and put their mind at ease, so they go back to normal operations, if that's what she's indeed doing.
I'm going to make this very clear, because first of all, I'm not broaching the subject as a critical eye toward what the prosecutor has said, and not even questioning the data. It's just the disparity between stories is tough to reconcile for most of us. Quotation from the report of Hawaii News Now, and then you can question, did Hawaii News Now get the story right? But the soundbite was given by City Prosecutor Steve Alm, said many of the homeless in the area are dealing with mental health, drug, and alcohol problems. Quoting, we're trying to get them into treatment to get them off the street, but keep them off the street. With the efforts of the police, supported by the mayor, crime is down around 60% in this area. That's a direct quote. So I'm just trying to sort through of what's really taking place. Bobby?
I think the question then would be, well, what's the definition of crime? Crime is down 60%. What criminal offenses are you talking about? Are you talking about 60% of disorderly conducts and harassments are down? Are you talking about murders and sex assaults and aggravated assaults? Are they included in the 60%? So I think maybe we need to distinguish, okay, he's saying 60% of crime is down. Well, which types of crimes are those?
Good point. The specificity is needed.
To Steve's point, where's he getting these numbers from? Are they matching up with HBD's numbers? Because I think we keep way better stats than the prosecutors. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
So
I mean, stats are great, but if the perception in Chinatown from business owners is that they don't feel any safer, even though statistics are showing that, then there's work to be done with reaching out to those business owners and in sharing with them what's going on, so they can go back to not living in, let's say, a fear state of mind or whatever's causing them to close their shops early or have that perception, or go talk with them. What is it that you're seeing that maybe we're not?
Mm-hmm.
Finally,
and I'm already at the bottom of the hour break, but I'll ask the question. Maybe we can answer it when we come back. During the election year, we have every seat in the House and the Senate up for grabs, gubernatorial, lieutenant governor, and more. We have, I believe, 5 council seats that are up for new representation. What would you counsel legislators at the city and the state level to precisely focus on legislation that would help the most in law enforcement? And I'll come back to you, fellas, after the bottom of the hour break. It's the SHOPO Hour, and you're dialed in together. News Radio 830 KHVH. Welcome back. It is 7:36 in the morning. News Radio 830 KHVH. It is, once again, the SHOPO Hour. And again, if you've missed part of the conversation or would like to revisit, go to our website, khvhradio.com. Click on our podcast link, and you will be able to download and share thoughtful conversations featuring Bobby, Steve, and Mark. Revisiting the question asked at the bottom of the hour break, paraphrasing, all seats in the legislature, some on the council. What legislatively would you like to see if there's an issue that would help law enforcement the most with the legislation that is proposed and passed? And who would like to lead us off?
Well, first and foremost, we'd like to see those people up for election support your local law enforcement, right? And don't just say it. Actions are louder than words. Number one, how about some mandatory minimums, right? That will help. Number two, how about you guys get your act together and let's get a prison going, right? I mean, and then number three, how about no leeway for prosecutors, right? You pass a law, make that law the way it's supposed to be, not where the prosecutor says, oh, no, you need this, 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 and that. Prosecutors can't define the law, right? Prime example is the, what's the theft one? I'm losing my mind
I'm
over
sorry.
here.
Which one was that? A particular case or?
Yeah, you get 3 or 4 thefts. Sorry, what is that? What's the name of it?
Habitual.
Yeah, the habitual property crime, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the law is specific, right? But the prosecutors, they come out with their own little spiel of, oh, no, we're not going to prosecute it because you need this, this, and that. No, go by the law. So how about you tell the prosecutors, no, you can't come up with you can't define the law. Whatever the law says, you prosecute. So those 3 things will help us a
So the
lot.
reason why they would not prosecute under a scenario like that, is it because legal standing has not been attained due to lack of evidence to take it beyond a reasonable doubt? Or is there benefiting to having a succession rate in the number of prosecutions? So in other words, prosecutor's office can represent, of the cases we've tried, we have a 96% success rate. Something along those lines. Thoughts?
I think it's a little of both. I think it's both because you want to keep that succession rate high, especially since prosecutor's position is an elected position. Also, yes, it's a determination made by the deputy prosecutor on whether or not they can prove the case in court, and if there's any doubt that they can't get a jury or a judge to believe beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed the crime, then more than likely they'll dump the case.
Wow.
And there's a lot of cases being dumped. It's just really frustrating for the officers out there. It really is.
No, absolutely. But the mandatory minimums, have we ever encountered this previously? Do we actually have something similar that's on the books that is never enforced? Do we know the status of our community in that regard? And by the way, is that relegated to the city council, or is that a state legislative issue? So the council, legislative branch of the city, are they empowered to pass such a law? Would we petition the city? Do we go to the state?
Well, maybe under the revised ordinance, it would be. But, for the revised statute would be the legislature. So, but the city council, they make all the laws for the revised ordinances. Right?
How about this? This might seem way out there, but how about you make common sense legislation? Common sense.
Yeah,
let's everybody come together. And if you want to go ahead and you want to make some laws, excuse me, don't make it where the law is going to make the community less safe. Don't make it where the police officers statewide are going to it's going to make their job harder. And let's make sure we still advocate for the victims of crime. We're going down this road where things are getting twisted. That nonsense bail reform we've talked about multiple times, okay? Legislators should consult. Let's put it out there. SHOPO will be happy to consult with any legislator that reaches out to us to ask our opinion on what we think about their ideas. We want to be proactively involved. So I would say, Rick, any legislators on either side of the aisle that want to reach out to our union to get our feedback on what we think our members, what would work for our members, and what would keep the community safe, we're happy to be there with you. We're happy to work with you. I don't feel that politicians in this state have reached out enough to law enforcement leadership at the county levels, the various police chiefs and their administrations, SHOPO being the labor union that represents the hardworking men and women. Let's get a collaborative effort and not just a few people in a think tank where they have no idea what they're talking about.
Bobby.
I think we can, agree that a lot of the crime, especially in Waikiki and Chinatown, they're being committed by the same characters.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly they're the minority. So if all of the crime is being committed by a group of individuals, then city council and the legislatures and the local departments and the community need to come together and figure out what kind of laws can we pass to try and address that, to not have these repeat offenders constantly making community members as victims in our community. That's what we need to focus on. It's the repeat offenders.
And Bobby hit it. We are a community. The community is made up of various people that are put in positions to do certain jobs. The politicians think they have an idea. Let's get the prosecutor's office involved. Let's get the chiefs in there and the various police agencies involved. Let's get the police labor union involved. Let's go ahead and work together to try to make the community safer and not just leave it to those individuals that may have the best of intentions, but with all due respect, they're clueless as to what the outcome of their legislation could lead to. We need a collaborative effort moving forward to keep the counties within our state safe. It's got to be a collaborative effort.
We have a few minutes for the traffic. Sidebar. Citizens arrest. Is it real? Is it invoked? And if so, how so? And it's a part of the lexicon of the law. Citizens arrest. Ever encounter this in your precincts, even on the street, when there are situations that arise?
Well, I guess shoplifting would be considered
That's what
like
I
a
was thinking.
citizen's arrest,
Yeah.
right? So
Shoplifting.
like a shoplifting case, right?
So if an individual is detained by, say, a store owner,
yes.
Loss prevention.
okay, loss prevention.
Big.
And then
big
all
business.
we're doing is accepting the arrest. So we have to make sure all the elements are proper. They did all the right things, and then we'll accept it. So
But that's in the confines of retail theft with a security officer that has a basic level of training. If you're talking about citizens arrest where you're walking down the street after your radio show and you think you're going to tackle somebody to the ground and yell at them that they're under citizens arrest, there's no such thing.
I would only do that with a St. Cardinals baseball fan.
Somebody
St.
that was
Louis
wearing
Cardinals, so.
somebody that was wearing a White Sox jersey, maybe.
Oh,
right?
they'd be history. There you go. But so because it's invoked often, I'm going to make a citizen. You're under citizen's arrest.
okay, well,
Good luck.
yeah.
I mean, literally, there's a belief that people can apprehend.
Well,
and
there's a
take
good
to-
Samaritan. Well, let's look into that further. People are covered under a good Samaritan law, where if they try to do life-saving measures and whatnot, we can have people in the community interject. But to say statements like citizens arrest, I think puts out a false sense that they have some type of authority invested in them, and that's not what
That's not
it
the
is.
case.
That's not the case.
Gotcha. How do we learn more about SHOPO, Steve?
Sure, Rick, thanks for asking. So please come visit us at shopohawaii.org. Again, we're working to get our website up and running completely. But from that shopohawaii.org, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Two other stories that have emerged. One, terrible story on the Windward side involving our EMS. I'd like to find out your take of what transpired from your perspective. And then secondly, yet again, another alleged abduction attempt. And that also in Kailua on the Windward side. We want to cover ground on both issues. By the way, I have not yet asked if you'd like to give us a call. Do so now at 521-8383 with the time remaining, because as always with the SHOPO Hour, the fastest hour in all of broadcast, because we're already in our final break. Stand by, there's more with the boys in studio with Bobby, Steve, and Mark, and we'll return after this. Welcome back. Actually, gentlemen, if we could headphones on, we'll take a call before we resume our conversation here on the SHOPO Hour at 521-8383. Let's go to Kaimuki and welcome Scott, who is on board with us. And Scott, thank you for your patience. Welcome to the SHOPO Hour.
Oh, thank you very much. Interesting conversation. One of your guests indicated about getting the prosecutors out of the charging decision. And I guess my concern regarding that is, isn't there like two different standards? Like the police will be looking at a probable cause and the prosecutors has to seek like beyond a reasonable doubt standards for conviction versus arrest. And then what about the police being up on all the suppression issues and everything the Supreme Court brings down? Don't you think you need to have an entity besides the police make the decision as to whether a case goes to trial or not? That's my question.
I appreciate the questions very much. Thank you very much, Scott. Gentlemen, anybody would like to jump on in? Oh, sorry about that. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so what I'm talking about is we make our case, we have a probable cause, we have all our evidence, it's all wrapped up for the prosecutors, but they have a criteria on how they charge the case. And it's not in the law. So, for instance, with habitual property crime, the prosecutors require that, they have to have a felony arrest, or they have to have so many arrests, or they have to have this, and then we will prosecute. The law does not state that. It's got nothing to do with probable cause. It's got nothing to do with the suppression issues. It's just the prosecutors interpreting the law for themselves. And that's the problem we have.
So you're saying it's a creation of a secondary non-legislative standard,
Yes.
an application of the original statute.
Yes.
So I'll give you another example of the charging criteria. Burglary. Somebody gets arrested for burglary. A part of the charging criteria is if the burglary occurred between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m., they're not chargeable. So the prosecutors will then release that person. And then if the case is good, they'll still prosecute it, but they'll send it over for an in-custody, a non-custody conferral, which can be 6 to 8 months down the road. So that's the challenge there.
Got it. Scott, thank you very much for posing the question. Much, much appreciated. A terrible story emerged on the windward side involving EMS and a patient within the vehicle and another injury sustained by another second EMS technician staff member. Response by HPD, of course, but at what point can you share process when a call like that is issued and any details that you may be aware of on this story that we have not been apprised of?
Well, it's our heart goes out to the patient that was back there, and of course the MICT who's fighting for his life basically right now. And the public needs to be aware of what first responders do every single day. Let's face it, you got fire, police, EMS, lifeguards, all these first responders, and people look at ambulance, going down a road, but every job is dangerous and difficult. So support your local first responder. We don't know. They're still investigating. We don't know what the cause of everything is. So, but just put your prayers for that MICT fighting for his life.
We live in a time of predators seeking prey. And amongst those are children and the brazenness that is employed by some. We've had another report of an encounter in Kailua side, but we do hear about these incidents, unfortunately, more frequently than not. What advice do you give to, 1, parents, 2, children, and 3, the general public, when perhaps encountering a situation such as this? Briefly, van comes by, 2 individuals in the van approaching a young boy riding his bicycle, telling him to get in the van. They followed him. He was fortunate enough to get away. Parents called, etc. So, on this type of story, gentlemen,
That's obviously a very concerning situation. There are predators out there that drive around when school starts, when school ends, and I think that's where parents need to have conversations with their kids and formulate at least some kind of baseline or game plan. I know with my kids, we have an understanding that there's a secret code that if anybody stops them on the street or in school and says, "Hey, you know what, Mom and Dad said that I'm here to pick you up today, and I'm going to take you home," then my kids will respond with, "Oh, okay. We have a secret code. Do you know what the secret code is that they gave you? And it's a particular word.
Mm-hmm.
And if the person can't produce it, then we tell them to go tell somebody right away, or to run away or whatnot."
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of situation, you have to have that conversation with your kids to make them aware about it.
Man, so important. I mean, and don't be shy, parents. Don't be reticent. It's a reality in which we live, and it is your responsibility to prepare your children as much as possible. One final topic, and let's see. All right, I'll hold on that. We only have 2 minutes left here. I want to get Lewis in from Kahalu. And Lewis, thank you for the call. We have a few moments remaining, and thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. My question is any of these people that are committing these crimes that all of a sudden really escalated, are they from here or are they illegal immigrants? Because I notice on the news sometimes they'll say, "Oh, Jesse so-and-so from Y&I," and then other times they won't say. They'll just say the assailant was caught down in Mililani. Thank you. That's all I wanted to know.
I appreciate the call, Lewis. Thank you very much. Gentlemen?
I haven't come across any. It's few and far between you see illegal immigrant, but for the most part, it's like Bobby was saying earlier. It's like the same old people committing the same old crimes, and they're from here. So,
and to Lewis's point, right now HPD still cooperates with immigration. If someone gets arrested in process and fingerprinted, if there's any type of hits when it comes to immigration, that they're a detention order or something like that. Because we are not a sanctuary city, law enforcement is able to communicate with those that do immigration for our country, and immigration will be notified, and we would detain them.
And by the way, there was an attempt to actually create sanctuary status for the entire state not long ago.
Yeah.
Time-wise, unfair question, very quickly. In Makakilo, a woman was held gunpoint. What is the process that HPD employs when responding to a call such as this, and just the front end of what takes place?
Sure. The first thing that comes to mind is it a barricade situation? Is this offender holding a woman at gunpoint in a situation where she's basically kidnapped? It's barricaded. Responding patrol officers are going to make the scene safe. They're going to create a couple labels of boundaries, and then if it's a barricade situation, we're going to call the officers that are trained in special weapons and tactics. We're going to notify SWAT. Patrol will take command until SWAT officers get there with their leadership. Then the SWAT officers will take command and hope to handle the situation.
Gentlemen, thank you so very, very much. Time flew by today, as always, but Bobby Cavaco, Steve Keogh, and Brother Mark Criccio, retired major with the HPD. I can't wait till the next time.
We got 10 seconds. Congratulations, Little League World Series. Congratulations.
Okay, I did spend a half hour on that in the last hour. No, just kidding. Amen, brother. Amen. Gentlemen, thanks so very much. We'll see you soon.
All right, Rick, take care.